Chase Elliott adds to his schedule, new names make it onto my power rankings, and is Shane Van Gisbergen deserving of a playoff spot? How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Hope your week is off to a great start. It's a great week already for the folks at Iowa Speedway, who just announced a grandstand sellout for August 3rd's NASCAR Cup Series event. Capacity out there is in the 30 to 40,000 range, similar to Nashville Super Speedway or Phoenix Raceway. That's great news, though, for Iowa, the second annual Cup Series Iowa Speedway event. Great to see so much fan support there in the Midwest. It's also a good week for Chase Elliott fans. After finishing top 5 in Mexico City, yesterday Hendrick Motorsports announced that Chase Elliott will run the Xfinity Series race this weekend at Pocono Raceway. Chase has made spot starts in Xfinity the past couple of seasons. His last 3 finishes are second earlier this year at Darlington, 4th at Darlington last fall, and he won last spring at Charlotte. I like seeing Chase Elliott run the Xfinity Series because he obviously runs really, really well. I think those style of cars he's more comfortable with. Great chance for Chase to build some additional confidence and get a different voice in his ear. Crew Chief Adam Wall runs the 17 team. Last year, I think it was Greg Ives in those select races. So, just a fresh voice in Chase Elliott's ear can't hurt, because Chase Elliott, I looked this up earlier, he is in his 10th year with crew chief Alan Gustafson. And Alan Gustafson's great. Won races with Jeff Gordon before Chase got there. They've won a championship together. But 10 years is a long time to work with someone. In fact, Chase Elliott and Alan Gustafson are the longest tenured active driver crew chief pairing in the NASCAR Cup Series. 10th season together. I mean, Jimmy and Chad obviously were together like 16, 17 years, won 7 championships. Like, that will not be matched in the modern era. Kevin Harvick and Rodney Childers worked together for at least a decade. But you think about recent dynamic duos, they don't make it that long. Cole Pearn, Martin Truex Jr., that was like a 5-year run. Adam Stevens, Kyle Busch won a couple championships. That was, I think, a 6-year span. Denny Hamlin, Chris Gabehart made it, 5, 6 years. Back in the day, even Jeff Gordon, a young, red-hot Jeff Gordon and Ray Evernham were together like 7 years before Ray went off to do other things. Matt Kenseth and Robbie Reiser, I think, were together 8 or 9 years in Cup. They had a couple of years in Xfinity together, obviously built their careers together, won a championship. But that's my point, is Chase Elliott, Alan Gustafson, we may not realize it, 10 years together is a really, really long time. And you just wonder if maybe Elliott and Gustafson, they get a little comfortable now. They're in a routine, and they won a championship a few years ago, but obviously the performance hasn't been quite as good. But when you're in that routine, when you're comfortable doing what you've always done, it may be hard to try new things, to push outside of your comfort zone. So that's why I like seeing Chase Elliott still make select Xfinity Series starts at a variety of racetracks, because it's something different. It breaks up his usual routine, gets a different voice in his ear. I think that's good for Chase, who's having a solid season. We've talked about it. He's top 5 in points. He's just not leading many laps, and he's not contending for wins on the regular. So hopefully Chase can have a good weekend at Pocono Saturday and Sunday. I'm sure his fans will be tuned in to both races quite closely. Power rankings coming up in a few minutes. I made some changes to my list this week, but I want to talk about Shane Van Gisbergen. Just hours after winning the inaugural NASCAR Cup Series race in Mexico City, Shane made it back to the States, back to Charlotte Motor Speedway, where he competed in the Summer Shootout Legends Car event last night. Based on a report I read from Velocity News, I think they're based in New Zealand, SVG didn't even make it there in time for qualifying. He made it in time for the feature, where apparently he got caught up in a wreck. But still, I'm officially an SVG fan. Dude comes over to America, shocks the world by winning Chicago, then goes on to win a bunch of Xfinity races. Now he's committed full-time to American oval racing, so much so that he's racing Legends cars in the middle of the summer. Just 24 hours after he was apparently leaking from both ends in Mexico City. I'm looking at some of this field. Keelan Harvick finished 7th in this race. Scott McLaughlin, okay, fellow Kiwi, finished 6th. Bubba Wallace 2nd. He's always closely tied to the Legends car scene. So that's all pretty cool. But yeah, I just love how Shane Van Gisbergen has embraced the American motorsport scene like this. I've seen a lot of discourse on social media this week. On one hand, fans are celebrating Shane Van Gisbergen's dominant Mexico City win. Really impressive performance. But Then on the other hand, there are the awkward NASCAR playoff implications where a driver 30th in points is now locked into the top 16 driver field. So a lot of fans are feeling conflicted, and that's okay. I feel conflicted too. I felt conflicted last summer when Harrison Burton won Daytona to qualify for the playoffs. I feel conflicted right now about Shane Van Gisbergen. Although I will say winning a modern super speedway race with this car and this package is far less impressive than what Shane Van Gisbergen did in Mexico City this Sunday. But I still feel conflicted about Shane Van Gisbergen, the playoff implications. I've always said on this show that the win and you're in part of this format needed more rules. It used to be that you had to finish the regular season in the top 30 in points to use that win to qualify for the playoffs, but then they got rid of that when they probably should have been even more strict. Maybe top 25 in points are able to win their way in. But instead, the past few years, any full-time driver can win a race and qualify for the playoffs. NASCAR has bounced from one extreme to another. Like, I've been a fan now over 20 years, and I remember back in the day, I had to listen to fans discredit Matt Kenseth's 2003 championship run. Oh, he only won one race. He was finishing 6th, 7th, 4th every week. Ryan Newman won 8 races that season. A lot of fans dismiss Matt Kenseth's championship as boring, didn't have a dominant car, wasn't a dominant season. I heard that for years from a lot of fans. NASCAR's created various playoff formats since then that put extra emphasis on winning over simply being consistent. And now fans don't like that. Why should 30th place Shane Van Gisbergen be in the playoffs over 16th place Ryan Preece? NASCAR has bounced from one extreme to another, and as a result, it's very difficult to make all NASCAR fans happy. And I have seen the arguments, who cares that Van Gisbergen bumped Ryan Preece out of the playoffs as they currently run? Ryan Preece wasn't going to win the championship. Just making the playoffs versus missing the playoffs is a multi-million-dollar difference for the race team. And that's not counting the added exposure, selling that to sponsors. The year-end charter payout for making the owners' playoffs is significant. The Wood brothers last year literally compared making the playoffs to winning the lottery. So those arguments are correct. Ryan Preece is not going to win the championship this year. He's not. We all know that. But making the playoffs is still a huge deal for any race team, but especially a race team like RFK in this instance. Some fans have argued that a 16 driver playoff field is too big, and maybe you're right, but I personally don't mind it. Sure, only 10 or 12 drivers realistically have a shot at the championship most years, but it's still fun to see some of those lower seeds go on deep playoff runs from time to time. Like a couple years ago, Bubba Wallace was the 16 seed, and he was this close to making the round of 8. Or Chris Buescher a couple years ago got to the round of 8. Or a better example, Chase Briscoe in 2022 got to the round of 8 with Stewart-Haas Racing. That was a fun story. Bubba Wallace, Chris Buescher, Chase Briscoe, none of these guys were winning the championship, but it was fun to watch them exceed everyone's expectations. So I apologize. I'm getting too far off topic. Back to the focus. I am not a fan of the current win and you're in format, but I'm also not going to hold my feelings against Trackhouse or Shane Van Gisbergen. Trackhouse knew the rules. Win and you're in has been a thing even since before the playoffs. Like back in the late chase period, they had those wild card spots. Win and you're in has been a thing for a long, long time now. Trackhouse knew the rules. They also knew that NASCAR has embraced road course racing. Nearly 20% of the regular season schedule now are road courses. So Trackhouse went out and got the best road course racer available. And Shane Van Gisbergen did his job perfectly under significant pressure. Shane Van Gisbergen is in the playoffs. Is he likely to make it out of the round of 16? Probably not. But if he does, Charlotte Roval in the round of 12, could we see an SVG round of 8 playoff berth? I'm getting way too far ahead of myself, way too far off in the weeds. That's my take. Let me know what you think of Shane Van Gisbergen, his playoff eligibility, down in the comment section below. But now it's Tuesday, day later than usual, but let's talk power rankings. Every week I look at recent performance, look at the races upcoming, and I rank the 10 best overall drivers and teams in the NASCAR Cup Series right now. Let's rock and roll. Couple quick honorable mentions. I've dropped Joey Logano out of the top 10. They've just missed the setup 3 of the last 4 weeks. I want to see this team get back to being consistent. And Alex Bowman, one great race at Mexico City doesn't wash away 2 months of poor performance, but that top 5 run at Mexico City was gutsy. A lot of credit to him. Hopefully they can keep that up. Okay, number 10. Bubba Wallace, back in the top 10 in the regular season points, tied for 9th specifically. After 3 straight finishes outside of the top 30, Bubba's last 3 races, 6th, 4th, 12th. At a road course. 12th is pretty impressive considering his teammate Tyler Reddick, who's a great road racer, missed it completely and was outside the top 20 all day. Hopefully Bubba Wallace can continue to string together some good finishes because that playoff cut line may be closer than it appears in the rearview mirror. Bubba Wallace in the top 10. At number 9, another new name this week. Chris Buescher has an average finish of 9th the past 3 weeks. Great run at Michigan, winning a stage, finishing 2nd. Pocono this weekend, Buescher led laps there last season, and it shares some similar characteristics to Michigan. Long straightaways, some flat corners. Chris Buescher won a race at Pocono back in 2016 for Front Row. Yes, it was rain shortened, but he got the trophy. I'm feeling good vibes around Chris Buescher right now. Buescher at 9. At number 8, I was this close to dropping Tyler Reddick out of my top 10. I was that disappointed with their lack of speed at Mexico City, but I'm keeping him at 8th because if you look at the bigger picture, Reddick still has the 5th most stage points earned on the season. And then you look ahead to Pocono this weekend. Reddick's last 3 finishes there are 6th, 2nd, 2nd. I'm keeping Reddick in my top 10 for this week, but if he struggles at Pocono, he's out. This team needs to find some consistency. They need to finish races where they actually have speed. They've struggled to do that recently. At number 7, Ross Chastain didn't run as well as I hoped at Mexico City. Finished 16th, but he did earn 8 stage points. That's not terrible. Very consistent lately. 10 straight top 20 finishes. 9th place average finish over the last 6 weeks. I know Pocono has not always been kind to Ross, but I've got him in the 7th spot for the 2nd week in a row. Dropping to 6th is Ryan Blaney. The high that came from winning at Nashville a couple weeks ago was short-lived. They struggled to find the handle at Michigan. Blaney spun out, finished outside the top 30, and then Mexico City. He did flip the stages to get some stage points, but he finished 14th. Not a terrible day, but not as good as many of the guys I have ranked ahead of him this week, like Chase Elliott. Yeah, I've got Chase Elliott at 5. Great final run at Mexico City, passed 9 cars to finish 3rd. I talked about Ross being consistent with 10 straight top 20 finishes. Chase Elliott has 16 in a row, every single race this season. What definitely bumped Elliott up a couple spots though are his recent numbers at Pocono. 3 straight top 10 finishes, including a win in 2022 thanks to the leaders being disqualified. Chase Elliott flashes into the top 5 this week. Kyle Larson comes in 4th. Had back-to-back top 10s coming into Mexico, and then got wrecked early on before he had a chance to show us what he really had. Although I guess we did see some of what Larson had. I mean, he qualified 6th, was running top 10 when he got wrecked, and then after they brought that car out of the garage, fixed it up, they put fresh tires on, and he set the fastest lap of the day. So safe to say, if Larson doesn't get wrecked, he probably runs top 5 and maybe would have been in the mix for a podium finish. Larson at 4. At 3 this week, I have Denny Hamlin. Not much to say, because he didn't race. Looking ahead to Pocono, there's no one better. Denny is a 7-time Pocono winner, close to being 8-time. Finished 2nd there last season. Look for Denny Hamlin to bring a ton of speed on Sunday. Christopher Bell clocks in at number 2. Podium finish, Mexico City runner-up. 5 top 10s the past 6 races. Quietly, Christopher Bell and that 20 team may be the best road course racing team besides Shane Van Gisbergen. He has 3 road course wins in his Cup career, 1st at COTA, 2nd at Mexico City. I think Christopher Bell is looking forward to Chicago and Sonoma back-to-back here in a few weeks. But at number 1, still I have to give it to William Byron. Wasn't flashy, wasn't great in Mexico, but still finished 9th. Led the most laps at Michigan the week before, ran out of gas racing for the lead. Before that, finished top 5 2 weeks in a row. He's extended his points lead to 67 and is inching closer and closer to a sub-10th place average finish. I love the consistency. William Byron hangs on to the number 1 1 spot. Let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my top 10, my honorable mentions. That is going to do it for today's episode, y'all. Thanks for watching. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more NASCAR news, commentary, race reactions, and so much more every day, every week, all year long. I'll be back tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, folks. I'll see you again real soon.